My middle name because the part of the world where I'm from is Pakistan, and in Pakistan almost everybody's first name is Muhammad, and my parents call me by Umair. And the other author of this paper, so just wanted to give you a little brief about what this paper is about. I don't know if you were there in 2015. I presented a paper out of my PhD dissertation at PCP in Hertfordshire, University of Hertfordshire. So in that presentation, what I presented, so this is a prequel of that. So I completed this in my master's degree, but I never published it or never worked on, presenting it as a paper. So the supervisor at that time, Dr. Paul Gill, he was kind of supervisor, but now we have decided to shape it in sort of a paper. So what we did, we worked on finding understanding the value proposition of Digital Opportunity Trust. So Digital Opportunity Trust is an Ottawa-based organization, which is a not-for-profit, non-governmental organization, and that helps in fostering entrepreneurship in developing or underdeveloped regions of the world. And at that time, the Governor General of Canada, present Governor General David Johnston, he was the chair of this very good, prestigious organization, and then my supervisor became the chair. So that's how I was exposed to the work they were doing and had my foot in understanding, eliciting some of the constructs that the top leadership and how they think about their own organization, how they think about the competition, and how they set themselves apart from the others. So that's just to give you a brief overview of what this talk would be about. So I'm going to start with the background, since it's going to be converted into a journal article, perhaps. So I'm going to talk more in terms of the scientific. So first, I'll start with the background of what DOT is and what they do, and right after that, I'll jump into the research goals. What were the aims that we had at that time? Then the theoretical framework that was used, and how Repertory Grid really helped us in conducting the exploratory study, which sort of helped us in making a case, and we tried to do triangulation by making a survey out of it and then confirming the results from their other staff members, not just the board members. Then, like any other research, I would enlist some of the limitations of this research, followed by the future research directions and the questions. So, starting with this predicament of that poverty is, or in other terms, if I say that there are unequal opportunities of wealth creation and work. So I've seen that side of it. Right off Pakistan, I came to Canada in 2010, and before that I did my undergrad and some work in Pakistan in an IT firm. But I knew that the level playing field was not there. There were some, we were privileged, and my parents were able to send me to a school where I got good education. Then I went on doing my undergrad in a good institution that polished me and building me into somebody who could go and have a decent earning. But there I felt that I worked for an IT company for about a year and a half, and that changed and that transformed my thinking. So what it transformed me into, I felt that by helping, or this technology really enables people to become economically more sound and can just become entrepreneurs and do their things on their own. And it could also include a lot of women which are not really well integrated in our society. So I saw that potential. It was out of my own personal experience that I felt that this is the future. We should really invest in that. And this is not just only Pakistan-centric or India-centric, or it's worldwide. It's a phenomenon. Economics draw or drive everything. So that was the background. So then I started learning about a lot of Western countries. They give a lot of aid to countries like Pakistan. So we hear in the news all the time that the US is providing this much aid, UK is providing this much aid. But where is it all going? So then and we knew where it was all going, but scientifically, in order to figure out, is there any evidence where it's going? Then scholars like Demisa Moyo, I came across, she worked in Cambridge or Harvard. She did her PhD there, and she wrote a book, Dead Aid, DEAD, Aid. So that was in reaction to Bono's Live Aid concert. So she said that a lot of people give money to developing countries, but eventually that money just ends up in the pockets of corrupt politicians or the leaders, and there's no trickle-down effect. And I've personally seen that. There's never the trickle-down effect. Very little is given to the societies or the communities around. So poverty crisis is there. So what are the alternatives that are available? You can go for empowering people, help them start their own businesses, do their own economic activities, but it also needs an environment which could help them do that. So in most cases it's missing. Now I personally think it's becoming more tougher because of the law and order situation. But before that, it was much better. When I was a kid, when I was growing up, people could just go and start doing business. But now there's this fear and not safety that's available to a lot of entrepreneurs. Then what? Then if you go with this alternative of empowering people, then you would have to increase their absorptive capacity. So it's more of a technical term, but if I just simplify it, so it is just to say that you raise their education level, they give them, or increase their constructs, or make them educated so that they become more informed and take better decisions in their life. So that gave me an idea, and that's where my supervisor also gave me the opportunity to work with him. And if I may just share that story in just a couple of minutes, that will also give you a better idea about how it all started. So when I was in Pakistan, I thought that I would never have the money or resources to pay for my higher education as an international student. It's 3 times the local student here. So I started writing proposals. So I Googled one person, I did an undergrad research that undergrad research was about how can we convert necessity entrepreneurs into opportunity entrepreneurs. And I walked on the streets of Lahore, that's my city, and I asked questions to vendors on the streets who are selling fruit or any such thing. And I asked them, why don't you convert this one small cart into 2 carts? What's stopping you? And they're like, well, the motivation is not there. We're happy with what we have. So I always thought that money is an issue. But my findings in that research were that money is not perhaps the only issue. It may be still an issue, but it's not the only issue. There's more to it. So that sort of started the whole journey. So I Googled somebody who's doing this kind of research in Canada, and my supervisor's name came up, and I wrote him a proposal. I read his papers and wrote him a proposal that I want to do a research. I contacted him, he did not reply. After a couple of months, I again tried to contact him. He did not reply, so I started calling him. So he never picked up his phone. He's going to watch this video, but he knows. So one time he picked it up on a Friday morning, I remember. It was his Friday morning and my Friday night. So he said, where are you calling from? I said, from Pakistan, and that's what I shared a proposal with you. Okay, so explain very briefly what you want to do. And I remember I wrote a 5-6 page long proposal, and in about 5-10 seconds I have to think of how to condense everything. And so anyway, I just used some of the words that sort of appealed to him. So he said, okay, you know what, you're going to receive a reply from me in an email. So once first you have to get your admission in the University of Waterloo, and then when your application is circulated amongst potential students who need a supervisor, I will look into it. And that was good enough for me. And he CC'd the program administrator. So that's how I got it. I got the admission, I came to Canada, I started doing my research. So it was a 2-year-long program, and I finished that in 1 year. And the reason why I finished that in 1 year with all the coursework and this research, 1, luck was on my side. 2, I was so motivated, driven. So I wanted to do or leave this kind of impact. I was young, I don't know how I did it. If I think about doing it again, I don't think I can. But at that time, somehow I did it. So dot work really resonated with what I believed in. They were actually doing similar kind of work by going to the developing countries, not giving them money, not giving them aid. They were increasing their absorptive capacity. They were giving them skill set, telling them how to use technology, and not even telling them what business to start. They would, okay, so you know your problems better than us, resolve them yourself. Here are the tools and techniques that you need, and that resonated well with my background and everything that I mentioned. So I decided, along with my supervisor's vision, that let's articulate their value proposition. It's a good organization, let's do that. So then at the end, I'll just talk about the benefits extended to all the stakeholders, how it's still working and where they are right now. So this research was done in 2011, and I finished that in 2011. So the background of DOT, it is an initiative to help reduce poverty and to achieve greater social and economic stability by empowering people with skills and knowledge by utilizing new technologies in their communities. So, and also it is based on the idea of serving at the bottom of the pyramid, which is C.K. Prella had, he was also somebody I really looked up to. He passed away unfortunately a few years ago. So he came up with this idea of going to, and he was from India. And he came up with this idea that there are so many organizations like Unilever, Nestle, and these companies are big companies. So how about they change their products and adapt to the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, who do not have the money to afford a $4 bottle of shampoo, for example. Let's make it a 10-cent sachet packet so that they can also improve. And that was the idea of serving at the bottom of the pyramid. And very revolutionary, and a lot of companies actually started out doing it. Now it's quite prevalent. So Digital Opportunity Trust is one of the not-for-profit or non-governmental organizations which strives to accomplish this goal by blending entrepreneurial education with corporate social responsibility to foster new ventures that use digital communication technologies. So at that time, they were operating in 11 countries. I just checked recently, they are now operating in 7. I don't know what happened, why they reduced, or at that time they were like expanding. But it's been almost like 14 years now. At that time, it was just 8 years. So rendering it important to validate and evaluate the extent to which information and communications technology, ICT, allow people in poor communities to exchange knowledge and to compete with new enterprises. So I now teach courses in business and in some institutions here, and I have a lot of case studies that I share with the students where we talk about how ICT has transformed people's life in developing or underdeveloped countries, and how they can compete with what is available. So a small entrepreneurial venture has the same platform to compete with a big company nowadays, thanks to the technologies that are available. So that's what they do, welcome page, and how they also share some of the stories there. So mostly they're in African countries, they're also in Middle East. They were one point in time when I was interviewing somebody, one of their board members in their office for the research, and I was discussing that you have a lot of potential in Pakistan too, and I know the culture and I can perhaps be of help. We can open an office. And they said, maybe we're looking at the potential director of DOT in Pakistan, and that's back in 2011. But unfortunately, the next day when I was there, Osama bin Laden incident happened. So Pakistan was all in the news, and we just never talked about that again. So, or maybe I was too scared to even talk about it. So what we do, so that's according to DOT. DOT program empower people of all backgrounds with confidence in using technology for individual and community development. They believe that the key is to make technology meaningful and relevant to people's day-to-day lives. So that's what they do, and I'd be happy to share the link, or you can just Google it up, DOT, and Ottawa, you would find their very current links. So now, coming back to my researching. So my aim was to advance the understanding of DOT and characterize their value proposition by characterizing the modus operandi, and to develop a method to explore the impact of entrepreneurship in developing or in underdeveloped regions of the world undertaken by DOT. So that's more of a visual, I would say, a model building or something that I envisioned before starting the research. So government leverage fund, they were getting the money from organizations like CEDA, which is the Canadian fund similar to USAID, and USAID. Then they were also partnering with corporations like Cisco, IBM, and other technology partners. And the objective was to also infuse or increase the absorptive capacity of people in the developing regions and give them the entrepreneurial skill, how to conduct their businesses or how to foster it. And as a result, they would have social and economic development in those regions. So my research was to expand these boxes with the help of evidence and look at where they are right now and how can they proceed forward. So I use stewardship theory to frame my propositions. So at that time I did not test any hypotheses because we were not there yet, and I had some propositions that I wanted to confirm. So these were 4 propositions that we started with. To explore the articulation of an NGO NFP value proposition, to explore how thought is creating value in societies, to articulate the most important value differentiators of thought with their competitors, and also to an approach to test readiness of corporations towards community benefit. And I decided to use Repertory Grid to go to the thought board members and elicit what they have in their minds, and also go to their staff, and also try to interview and figure out how they are trickling down this kind of knowledge down to their staff members or volunteers. So I started off by drafting the elements by going through the literature. So I came up with 20 elements, and that time I was also learning about BCP. I had no idea before that what this animal is all about. And it was really difficult at that time. I did not know, I did not have many resources available, but my supervisor and the books that I could find in my library really helped me. So I came up with 20 elements at that time. So along with my supervisor, and there were 8 other group members in the research lab that we had. So with the help of that, I revised those elements, and we came stuck with just 20 of them. And then we took those 20 elements to the DOT executives, and with the help of them, we further polished them, and we dropped 4 and we added 8. So at the end, we had 24 elements, which now I think are too many. But at that time, that made more sense. So element-based survey was then kind of created to confirm this kind of result from the volunteers and from the staff members. So this is just a process. I don't need to go through that. Pretty much everybody in the room knows how this triadic elicitation works. All right, so these were the elements, some of the examples I'm going to show. I'm not going to show you all 24. So what happened was they suggested that underneath those elements, you should also write some expansion points, because you'll be dealing with people who are in the field or who do not know exactly the jargons that are used. So stuff like, I'm just going to talk about the first one, let's say. Use established technologies to the benefit of developing economies. And the expansion point will connect people to these environments and build local confidence to develop local apps, for example, mobile. So that's an element. And these were on a card, and we used the Repertory software along with the manual elicitation. So these generated randomly, and they were giving us constructs. So that's one of the examples. So you could see that only, let's say, 3 bipolar constructs were elicited because of the number of elements we had. We had so many elements. So these were conducted and these were elicited. So that's the analysis that I conducted in finding which are the most important ones, and all the elements which made more sense were elicited here. So in all these 4 quadrants, I just have like 7 more slides. Anyway. So at the end, I also asked them a question. So how much they believe that their impact is in economic terms versus in social terms, which now I believe is a separation fallacy, thanks to a scholar named Edward Freeman. So he talks length about that we cannot really separate what is economic and what is social, because both are together. We shouldn't do that. So, but at that time, I was of the idea that it makes sense to figure out how they see themselves. So the propositions I drafted, this is the result. And I'm just going to briefly give you an overview of what were the results, what we saw. So drafting elements, I think we did a mediocre job with that. 24 elements, they could be reduced. Revising of elements, because the senior, they were really into it. They wanted to control the research. They weren't open to the idea of me conducting everything. So it was sort of directed from them as well, which I did not like too much. So red of elements by senior management, they really helped. So they really helped in terms of 3 or 4 really senior members. They had a clear vision about what should be the elements. Then conducting the element-based survey, we had problems like language barriers. So in Africa, if it's been administered, we have to translate it into the local language, and the timing was an issue. so we had very little control over it. So that would be something for the future. And corporate feedback, we had no idea about getting that at that stage. So we couldn't do the whole 360 thing, but we were able to do at least 180 degrees if that's how we want to see. So new learnings, we started off by articulating their value proposition. We actually got them, so at the end of their PCP session, there were 7 board members we interviewed, and all 7 of them were of the opinion, oh my God, this is very exhausting activity. So after 1 hour, 1 hour and 30 minutes of their time, at the end they were like, oh, we never thought of this from this perspective, and they were really tired. So it was exhausting, but they liked it. So the result that we also presented to them, they liked it, so that's the strength of PCP. So I'm just going to talk about the last point here. So initially it started as a master's degree inquiry, but then I built on it in my PhD. So I had 3 more studies in my PhD program, which I presented in PCP, and just recently I presented a paper in Academy of Management. And I was really happy to receive some very positive feedback from people who are empiricists, positivists, and my department is also in that direction, so we need to show them really good data and back our answers on that. But I was happy that my paper was accepted at Academy of Management, and Edward Freeman, who came up with stakeholder theory, he reviewed it personally, and he gave me feedback that he loved PCP and Repertory. So he is, and we are talking about how we can do some more case studies in the future. And just limitations, of course, like any research, too small a data set. Then we had only 17 people in the final survey. Again, a small data set, but it was an exploratory study, something that we started with, and that's it. Thank you very much for your time, and I do apologize.